All right. What is up, Good Lifers? Welcome to the Good Life Property Management Podcast, a show for property management entrepreneurs who want to build great businesses and live a good life. My goal is to help you build a bigger future. I'm your host, Steve Welty. And a good lifer to me, I was thinking about that. I'm like, what is a good lifer? And I'm like, it's someone that knows what they want from life and is taking the necessary actions to get there. And you could even be a good lifer, I guess, if you didn't even know what you want, as long as you're taking the actions to figure out what you want. As long as you're making progress towards the life you want, you're making progress towards living the life you intended, then I think you're living the good life. So at the Good Life podcast, property management podcast, currently don't have any sponsors. And, I don't really plan on having any sponsors. Instead, I just ask that you refer someone to the podcast or write a review for me if you enjoy the content and you get something out of it. That's my only ask. So today's episode, I wanted to talk about how I plan my day and some productivity hacks I've learned along the way. Recently, we're going through some big changes at Good Life where, I think if you're a growing company, you're always kind of restructuring and reformatting how you're doing things. And so one thing we're doing is we are looking at how we do applications and the whole leasing process and kind of creating a new position around a leasing manager, handling all of that to take some additional weight off the property managers. And, we're also doing a big implementation on some sales and marketing stuff that is a little bit outside our comfort zone. And so I'm getting pulled into, I'm having to beat back my initial instinct to get involved in things I shouldn't get involved in. And what I mean by that is a lesson I learned in the book, Extreme Ownership, which I think I've mentioned on the podcast, but it's such a crucial lesson. And it has a Post-it note, which you can't see in the video because it's too bright, but it says, don't get caught in the details. True leadership is staying outside of the details and letting your decentralized command, your commanders below you, handle the details. So what's most important for you as the mission commander or the entrepreneur or the CEO or president is to give clear intent of what you want to happen and then give them and your team the flexibility to handle things as needed since they're on the ground. So what I'm going to go over today is a little bit along those lines because I woke up this morning and I'm like, okay, I got to get involved in this project. I got to get involved in this project. And I was able to back out of that line of thinking because I have a kind of a gauntlet that I run through every morning that my ideas have to make it through in order for me to act on them. Because I really feel that planning is the key to success. And I know early on, especially, I did very little planning. It was just like wake up, phone, email, grind, But, every day we're kind of given the opportunity to succeed. And I think the problem many of us make is we make poor choices. We do what's easy. We get distracted. We work on things we shouldn't be working on. Something below our pay scale, someone else on our team should be doing, and we really stand in the way of our team members' futures by failing to give them the tasks that will really help them grow. And I know delegating is hard, and I feel like I have like a brown belt, almost a black belt, maybe in delegation now. But when I started, whereas like I love just giving people stuff now, but when I started, I had a very hard problem with it, very tough time. So it's a muscle, right? But so decisions and planning your day, right? So it was funny. I remember maybe 3 years back, maybe a little bit longer, give or take a year. I was really going through some trouble and grief, or not grief, but just like mental turmoil. I couldn't figure out certain things. And I was kind of like, I just wasn't in a good place, I guess you would say, mentally. And I wasn't quite sure why. It wasn't like apparent to me why. So I think I just had an amazing insight one day. It's just struck me like a lightning bolt. I remember I was crossing the street in front of my house, and it clicked one day, and I realized the problem. I was a poor decision maker. All this turmoil in my head and like not being able to figure out the next move wasn't because I was like making the wrong decisions. It was because I was failing to make a decision. I was at a crossroads with some things in my life, and I realized that I just wasn't making a decision, and that if I would just make a decision, that would solve a ton of my problems. So that was an amazing aha moment that I was a poor decision maker. I was like, that's what's standing in the way of my future. So I started working on that. I kind of dived into that topic, and it's funny, like, there's certain strategies you can use. Like, we all get decision fatigue throughout the day. So you want to really automate and not have to decide things, because you can only decide so many things. And then you've ever been at the end of the day and you're just like, I don't care, like, just whatever. Like, I can't make any more decisions. So starting with the easy stuff, I started with, like, when I went to eat, I just glanced at the menu and I picked, clothes. I just kind of put the clothes on that felt good, so delegating lower end decisions at work to team members, because the more decisions we have to make, the more fatigue we get. So kind of making the decisions, tying back into, we wake up in the morning, we decide what we're going to do, and how do we make the right decision? Or at least, I don't know if there's necessarily the right decision every day, but the best decision that you can make about how your day is going to go, how your week's going to go, etc. So I use a blend of different questions and tools I've picked up over the years to help me decide what I'm going to do each day. It's always a work in progress, and it always shifts subtly, which I used to beat myself up over. I always felt like, oh, there's this one way of doing things. No, you grow as a person. Other things are important. They come and go, so it's always a work in progress, but it's really helped me stay on track and make good progress. So I wanted to share it with you. So number one is you need a daily game plan. So I call it my start here, because it's like the easy button. Like, I don't even want any confusion on what this is. It's just like, start here. Like, okay, great. Wake up, start here. I realized that I needed this, and we have this on our team, that everyone has a start here, because we've identified there's certain things we need to do every day, and there's an order they should be done. And taking the decision out of, like, okay, well, what am I going to do now that I'm up? Just that start here is great, because it limits decision fatigue and makes you effective, because you've already decided in advance what you're going to do for that day. So I'm going to go over mine. I've always been very intrigued in what other people's kind of morning routines and how they make decisions are. So I'm going to share mine. So I wake up, right now I'm doing this thing where you read the Bible in a full year. It's like this app. So it takes like 15 minutes on the Bible. And then I do a 20-minute meditation every day. There's been nothing more in my life that's changed my life than 20-minute meditation every day. It helps create space in your life, which I'm going to talk about more in a little bit. But, Ray Dalio, a lot of people are big advocates of meditation, and it's all super popular now, and I'm an advocate. So 20-minute meditation, quiet the mind. Then I do some proactive gratitude. Now, proactive gratitude is different than reactive gratitude. So reactive gratitude is like, thank you for, I'm grateful for the house that I own, or, that I got, that big client, something that happens to you, right? Proactive gratitude is more powerful, because you're slowing down and you're looking at things that are already miraculous in life that you may otherwise overlook. So, like an example would be, like the birds that are chirping outside your window, or, the beautiful sunset that's coming up. Something that's just kind of natural in your life that you might otherwise overlook, if that makes sense. So I do some proactive gratitude. Then number 3, I pick a question. So I have a list of questions that about a year ago, I got very intrigued by questions. I always thought I was looking for answers. And then I heard it somewhere. I don't know how it came about, but I realized that answers are kind of like not as important as questions. Answers are like all in Google. You can answer any, there's answers to everything, but questions are what's really profound. And so I created a list of these questions I've come across over the years. And this first question, and so I asked myself a new question each morning. I spend like 5 minutes on this, 5-10 minutes. I was listening to this yogi speak one day, and she was talking about, she asked herself all these questions all the time. And I was like really intrigued by that. And she's asked this question. She's like, so I woke up and I asked, how can I add more joy today? And I was like blown away by that question. I was like, what a freaking great question. How many of us wake up and ask, how can we add more joy in our life today? It's like that question's never entered my consciousness. And I don't know if that resonates with you, but it was so cool for me. I was like, I'm going to ask myself that question when I get up. How am I going to add more joy today? So I'll sit with that. There's other things like, what can I do for God today? What would I do in my life if money was no object? What would I do differently if no one would judge me or I didn't care what people thought? What's one thing I could start doing today to improve the quality of my life? Where am I not being honest with myself and why? And so there's a lot of, there's a whole list of them. I can put them in the show notes if you're interested. But I like to ask myself a question because it kind of gets the creative juices flowing. And I like to just sit in the quiet in the morning and kind of ponder one of these questions. And they take you in some interesting directions. And so it also is another thing that's helping me create space in my life before I get into, the hustle of the day. So ask a question. That's the next one. All right. And then I get into planning my day. So I commit a certain amount of time for music in the morning, kind of gets the creative juices going, and it's a passion of mine. So I do some songwriting or singing or music. And then I make sure I have something like mind or body or both on the calendar. So, I'm either going to go for a run or surf or do yoga or do something mind and body. And then I make sure I have something relationship wise on the calendar. So I'm either going to call someone or I'm going to do something special with my wife, Courtney, or, I'm going to write someone a letter. So I'm going to make sure each day I have something relationship wise, reach out to an old friend. And so I make sure that's on the calendar. And then I check reminders on my phone. I keep a lot of reminders on my phone. So I'll just check and see like what's coming up today. So I kind of get a gauge for that. And then next I create the power list. So the power list, I've heard a lot of different variations of the power list. I got the name power list from the MFCEO podcast, but he's definitely not the one that invented it, but I like that name, power list. The earliest reference I've heard of the power list is the story with Charles Schwab, I believe, and I can't remember his name, but anyway, Charles Schwab back in the day, you've probably heard the story, hired a consultant and said, we need to figure out, how to be more productive and get more done and come up with something, whatever you end up coming up with, I'll pay you whatever it's worth, And so he said, all right, you write down your top 6 things, most important things for the day, and then you work on 1 until it's done. Then you work on 2 until it's done. Then you work on 3. Anyway, that ended up changing Charles Schwab's business, and he ended up writing him a check for like the equivalent of $1 million today or $500,000 or something. But that's kind of the idea when I first heard the power list. But I've heard a couple different takes on it. And the way I do it now is I make a list of the top. I used to do 5 things, but now I just do 3 things. So it's 3 or 5 important activities you have to do today in order for your day to be successful. Now, this isn't a goal list. It's not, close 2 more houses or whatever your deal is that day. It's not a goal list. It's something you can control. And it's also not something that's already a habit. It's like, oh, if maybe you're reading every day, don't put reading there because, it needs to be something that's not a habit, that's important, that you need to get done that day for that day to be successful. So you make the list. And the reason why you might think, I remember when I first heard this, I was like, 5 things in a day. I thought, that's a waste of a day. I do 50 things, 20 things in a day. But the more I've tried it, I finally have started to get it, because here's the deal. As entrepreneurs, a lot of times and business people in business, or anyone really, our tendency is to make a big list, right? So, oh, I've got this list of things to do. And every day we never accomplish the list. So you might get 10 things done in that day, but you had 15 things on your list, and it feels like a loss. And life is just a game, right? This is just a game. So why set up the game for you to lose every day? So psychologically, time management, I've heard it say that time management is not really time management. It's more emotion management. So you want to manage your emotions. And so if you're constantly getting a bunch of stuff done, but you're never getting through your full list, then you feel like a loser every day, and you feel like you're not quite getting there. So why not set up the game for you to win and get really energized? So that's why the 3 to 5 things are powerful, because like I'll do the 3 things. And if you do them, you cross them off, you put a W on the page, you won that day, and then you can take off. You're done for the day. Now, if sometimes that happens at 11 a.m., great. Go enjoy the rest of the day. You've earned it. You've done the 3 important things. Now, you don't have to take work off. That just means you go into bonus territory at that point. If you're like, oh, well, all right, I'm going to continue to do a few other things. You still won that day, but you're just doing some extra bonus stuff. So you feel a lot better. You stay a lot more energized. And the other thing that 3 to 5 things does is it forces you to only focus on unique ability activities, or things that you're bringing the most value to your organization by doing, because you can't obviously be, doing emails for long periods of time or doing less important activities and do that system, because you're going to have 20 things. But you shouldn't really have 20 things in perpetuity. If you're still early on, or you're still getting, things delegated, then yeah, it's the 3 to 5 things might be tough. Start with 5 or 6 or whatever works for you. The idea is that you set it so it's a low enough number of things so that you can win. And, you count your wins, and at the end of the week, you look, and if you got 3 wins and 2 losses in a 5-day work week, then you won the week. And so the power list has been extremely powerful tool for me. And that's why I wanted to share it with you. So what I'll do is I'll go to my list of things. By the way, the list of stuff, is always changing. So you've got new stuff coming in. So anyway, I was going to go somewhere else with that, but I'll wait on that. So you got your list. The first question I ask myself, so now that I've created my power list, now I'm going to run my list through the filter, through the gauntlet. So I'm going to say, okay, what am I procrastinating on? This is a great question. There's an amazing podcast with Dean Jackson and Dan Sullivan called The Joy of Procrastination. And they go so deep on procrastination. It's so funny. But basically the premise is that procrastination has always been this like dirty secret that, none of us want to be known as procrastinators. And we kind of feel bad about it. And there's like these things we're procrastinating on. But the fact of the matter is that everyone is a procrastinator. There's nobody that's not a procrastinator. Even if someone is the most action-oriented person, there's always something that they've thought about that is on their list that they're not taking action on, right? So instead of procrastination being a negative thing, you turn it into a positive thing by procrastination shining a light on things you should be doing. So when I make my list, I'll look at my list and also look at my main list. So like I've written my things to do today, but then I'm also still looking at my main list to make sure the things I wrote down are the right things. So I ask, what am I procrastinating on? What you're procrastinating on usually are the things that should be done. Now, the procrastinating, procrastinating is different than identifying or thinking through a task and then making a conscious decision to parking lot it. Like we have a parking lot list, in my list and then in the company. These are ideas we've thought through, but they're not the right time for right now. So we parking lot it. That's not a procrastination. A procrastination is when you haven't really given the time to think through it. And so it's just kind of sitting there on your calendar, not getting done, or on your list of things to do, not getting done. So first question, what am I procrastinating on? Because that's a big indication of what I should be working on that day. And then it gives you energy, right? And it really fires me up because I'm like, okay, this is what I've been procrastinating on. No longer here, it's going to get done. Boom. Second question, I say, how will this move the needle? So these things I'm going to work on, how is this going to move the needle? A lot of times I'll get caught up with things that just sound good, or, I'm like, how this isn't going to really impact my business. How is this thing going to move the needle in the sense of how is it going to get me closer to one of my top 5 goals this year? You know what I mean? And that's another screening filter. So now maybe I'll start moving things around, or I'll get rid of something because I've realized that these 2 questions have shined a light on it, and that it's not, the best thing I should be doing. Number 3 is I ask myself, what on this list that I just created can someone else do 80% as good as me? There's a rule in delegation I've heard that says if someone can do it 80% as good as you can do it, you should give it up. So that helps me filter. So sometimes I'll put 3 things down on my list and I'm like, oh, well, all 3 things someone else on my team, or someone I can hire as an independent contractor can do as good as me. So then I'll erase those, plan those delegations, and then I get 3 more spots, right? Fourth question, how can I make this recurring? So a lot of times we're constantly doing the same types of activities. And if we just took some extra time to look and see, okay, am I making this decision on a regular basis, or am I like doing this type of project on a regular basis? How can I just make this recur so I don't have to think about it? Maybe I can just completely automate it and delegate it and completely get it off my plate. Or maybe it's just like a regular calendar meeting with myself or someone else to go over it. So how can I make this recur? That's the fourth question. And then number 5, I say, estimate the units it will take and finalize the list. So the units it will take, this is a new concept I learned from Dean Jackson. It's super cool. So he looks at time instead of as a 24-hour period, he looks at it in 10-minute increments. And 1 unit of his time, methodology is 10 minutes. So if you account for 8 hours of sleep, that means we all have 100 waking out, or 100 waking units of, productivity we can do. So we sleep, that doesn't count the 8 hours you sleep. So we all get 100 10-minute blocks. Doesn't that sound like a lot, right? 100 10-minute blocks, not like all week, each day of wakeful productivity time. So you can get a lot done. Can't you brainstorm something very clearly in 10 minutes? Can't you do like a fairly decent workout in 10 minutes, like push-ups, sit-ups? It's funny because I think the power in it is it shows you just the abundance of time and makes time a little less linear. Because, I don't agree that time is short, necessarily. I think time is very abundant. And when you break it down into 10-minute increments, it kind of shows you that. So this helps me with little things like, like meditation, like, I'm so busy, I can't meditate now, or, I can't do this or that. All these things that we tell ourselves we're too busy for, I guarantee 80% of them can be done in like 10 or 20 minutes. So that's 2 units. So I'll estimate the number of units it's going to take to finalize my list. So I'll say, this is only going to take 3 units, which is 30 minutes, or this is only going to take 6 units, which is an hour. So just looking at time from that smaller time breakdown has been very helpful for me. And then 6 is I'll do an impact filter. This is something in Strategic Coach that is kind of a thinking tool, but basically it helps you think through what you're doing, what's the important part of it, the thing you're doing, what's the best result if you do it, what's the worst result, and what are the things that have to happen for this to be successful when the project's finished. And the great thing about the impact filter is it helps idea people clarify their message. It helps leaders clarify their message. And then you give the impact filter to your team. And then your team is very clear on what they want done. And then they're able to get the job done however they see fit without, the president or CEO or broker, kind of steering the ship on how things are going to get done. You just give commanders intent, which is what Jocko Willink says in Extreme Ownership, the book, amazing book. You give commanders intent, and then you let your commanders handle the details of the mission. So that's what I do to think through my power list. Those are the first 6 questions. Then I go down, that's like the first 6. I don't know if this is overkill or not, but this is really helping me so far. And I'm always tweaking it. But then it goes into like round two, right? Because this may seem like a lot, but the whole thing takes me 20, 25 minutes max. And if I can spend that time and really hone in on the things that are important, then I don't need more time. I just need enough time to handle the things that are important. So I would rather spend 30 minutes really thinking through clearing my head and what's going to be the most successful thing for me to do today, rather than just jump into it, because then you never are able to really think through things clearly and do the things that are most important. So the next question I ask myself is this my unique ability? So I've identified my unique ability. Is this my unique ability? Next question. Would I pay someone to my salary to do this task on my to-do list? Would I pay someone my salary to do this? And I'm laughing because like there's so many questions, but literally the mind will play tricks on me and force me into doing something I shouldn't be doing unless I run it through this gauntlet of questions. So would I pay someone my salary to do this? The next thing once I have my list ready to go and I feel pretty good about it, excuse me, then I'll ask, what are the pain points of the thing that I'm working on and how can I remove them? How can I approach this differently? And then I'll ask, is there a who I can call? There's a profound concept I learned called who, not how, that billionaires always think who, not how. So again, it goes back to the same type of thing. You don't need to be caught in the details of how things are going to happen. You just need to find the right who. So a lot of times the right who for me is someone in NARPM or someone on my team or someone in my strategic coach that's in a completely different line of business. And so I was a how person my whole life growing up. I always thought I had to be the smartest and come up with the most brilliant idea. And it's such a, it's such a, I can't find the word, revealing or amazing feeling to realize that I don't have to invent the next amazing thing. I just have to find the who that's going to invent the next amazing thing and work with the best who's there are. So who, not how. Is there a who I can call? All right. So that's kind of my day and how I plan my day. And you'll notice email is not on it. So I went to checking email once a day. Biggest productivity hack I could give you. Amazing lifesaver thing. I couldn't always do it. So I feel for you if you're, if that's not what you can do right now. I get it. It's not something you can do overnight, especially if you are taking care of properties or you have clients that, need to be attended to. But if it's in your goals to build more of a self-managing company that doesn't require you for it to succeed on a day-to-day basis, then moving to email once a day is a game changer. I don't go to my mailbox once a day to like get the UPS mail or USPS mail. I don't even go to my mailbox every day. I go like every 3 or 4 days. It gets overflowed, but email once a day. It's in the afternoon. So it's back to managing your energy, right? So email in the morning, horrible idea. Everyone else's demands clogging up your mind. I don't even look at my email until the end of the day. I do use it during the day in a proactive way to send emails, but I use inbox when ready. I think Andy Props told me that. I think I've mentioned on the podcast before. Big shout out to Andy for that. That's been a game changer because it hides your inbox as you're working. So you can like do proactive stuff in email, like send emails or search old emails without seeing like the just never ending chain of emails coming through. And what's funny? If you go to email once a day, what I've noticed is the longer you do it, the less email you get. Because you just like aren't one of those people that are going to fire someone back an email right away. So they think twice about sending you an email. Maybe they text you or they call you or they don't even bother or they hit someone else up on your team because, you're just not the person that responds immediately. So moving on, few other things I want to go over. End of the week. So I review the week. So I review all my power lists. I keep a binder or like a notebook with all the power lists and all, my gratitude stuff and notes. So I look back over the week. I see how many I won, how many I lost, then I ask myself a series of questions. I say, what am I proud of this week? What can I improve on next week? And then I look on next week as I make those adjustments of what I can improve on. And I say, is everything next week a hell yes? I'm on this tip the last few years that the master skill of success is saying no. So you need to be saying no a lot more than you're saying yes in order to stay focused and achieve your goals. So I ask myself, is everything this coming up week a hell yes? And if it's not, maybe I'll ping someone and say, hey man, I'm sorry, I need to cancel this commitment. I just overcommitted myself. I'm already committed elsewhere. And you can say I'm already committed elsewhere, and it could just be a meeting with yourself. It's funny how we don't give ourselves a lot of times the permission to make a commitment to ourselves. It's like, oh, are you free this day? No, I actually have a commitment. Well, and then maybe they'll push you on it. Well, what's the commitment? Oh, I said I was going to write for an hour and a half. I was going to write music for an hour and a half. Well, you can break that. Well, the commitment to yourself should be the most important commitment. But it's funny how a lot of times we don't give ourselves permission to make commitments to ourselves or set aside time. It might not be important to the rest of the world, but it's one of the most important things to me to make sure I keep that commitment with myself. So review my list. I'll review my calendar, and a couple other quick hitter things I wanted to mention that I have on my notes here is, again, don't begrudge reflective and planning time. I'm trying to increase the amount of time I spend just sitting here and quiet and looking at the sky and the time that I plan my day and my week. Because if I can get very clear and work on the right things, I'm going to have far less to do because I'm going to be delegating it to other people. And the stuff I do is going to have a much greater impact on my business. And my team is going to grow as the tasks that I have are going to be pushed down to them, and then they can push it down. And then you're going to feel a lot better because you're doing the right types of activities. Busy equals laziness. The most successful people are not busy. Yes, we're always going to go through hills and valleys, times when we're very busy, and you shouldn't beat yourself up if you just happen to be in a busy time. But you also shouldn't be perpetually busy. You ever talk to those people? They're always you don't even want to ask how they're doing because oh, I'm so busy. It's just so busy. Very successful people are not busy. You know what I mean? They've got space around them to think and take clear, corrective, appropriate action. So again, back to the creating space thing. I think I'd mentioned it on an earlier podcast how that was a big revelation for me. That Jason Goldberg, a coach I've done a session with, told me, what if I told you creating space was the number one determining factor in your success? What would you do if creating space was paramount to your ability to be successful? What would you do? And so I started looking at all these ways that I would create space in my life. One is I don't put things back to back on my calendar. There's always a 15-minute buffer. I try to go no more than an hour and a half, 2.5, 3 hours, maybe max, without a 15-minute break. You need breaks in between, your appointments and your schedule. Dan Sullivan has this brilliant quote. He says, tightly scheduled entrepreneurs can never transform themselves. They never get far away enough in their minds from what they're doing that they can actually turn around and observe what they're doing. You can't be inside of a system and understand the system you're in as well. That second quote was Gödel. That first one's Dan Sullivan. But you can't be inside of a system and understand the system you're in. I thought that was profound from kind of a horrible person in history, Gödel, but it is a very, profound quote. Couple other things before I go. I heard it said, it's time to turn pro, man. It means it's time to give up the BS. It's time to go pro. When the alarm goes off, you hit it, you get up, you cut the things out of your life that are dragging you down. It's time to go pro, man. At some point, we got to go pro in life. And that really resonated with me. So I want to share that with you. Also, you can never become successful. You can only be successful every day. So comparisons to others are always going to drag you down when you try to, you're like, oh, this person has twice as many units as I do, or is making a lot more money, or, you know, try not to compare yourself to other people because that's just going to bring you down. But what's really helped me mentally is like, I'll look at someone, maybe a musician or something. Like that was a big passion of mine. It still is a big passion of mine, but like growing up, like I was convinced I was going to be like a rock star. Now I'm so glad I'm not, because you don't have freedom when you're a rock star. You're an employee of a company. You have to go all over the country touring. And like, I'm kind of like an introvert at heart. So I think God gave me exactly what I needed. But, you know, sometimes I'll see someone winning a Grammy or something. I'm like, oh, you know, that's so cool. I wish, you know, I could do that. But the thing is, you can't become successful. All you can do is be successful every day. And what that means is I may not be winning that Grammy, but the way that person won that Grammy was that they got up every day, they wrote music for 2 hours, and then they sang, and then they went and played with other people. So like, all I can do is copy those habits of successful people. And that really helped me because that means I can be successful now. I don't have to be unhappy because I don't have these things that are material that don't mean anything anyway, and the happiness will be fleeting. It's all about the journey, kind of like Gary Vee talks about. Love the journey, love the process, love that you're being successful today, and then you can be happy and hang your hat on the fact that you were successful today because you did the things that successful people do. Big aha for me. Love that. Wanted to share. Schedule 1.5 hour power blocks of focus time during the day, and you'll during the day when you feel your best. That's another big one. You know, it's all about emotion management. So I like to schedule an 1.5 hour power block. This comes from Darren Hardy, and you do that. I'm best in the morning, so I do that focus time in the morning. Phone's away, it's quiet, and that's that. And so last thing I'll leave you with is a cool thing I heard recently about the 2-list exercise from Warren Buffett. I guess the story goes, Warren Buffett was talking to his pilot. His pilot was talking about, you know, wanting to get more things done or something. And so Warren Buffett said, okay, this is how you become more successful. First thing you need to do is you need to make a list of the top 25 things you want to accomplish in your life. And, you know, it could be your life, or it could be the year, or, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be 25. It could be 10 or whatever it is. So, but let's just stick with the original story. It's 25, Warren Buffett. So the guy writes the 25 things he wants to accomplish down. And then Warren Buffett says, okay, step 2 is write the 5 things, your top 5 out of those 25. What 5 things do you have to do to live the life that you intend to live, have no regrets? Top 5 things. Okay. Wrote those down. And then, so the pilot was like, okay, cool. I get it. Now I'm just going to focus on these 5 things. And then intermittently, you know, I'll, you know, do the other things. And Warren Buffett said, no, you focus on the 5 things, and then you write, this is the things I must do list. And then this list is the things I must avoid at all costs. I thought that was incredible. I've also heard it say, like, you take that second list and you throw it away, because those other, you know, 20 things are the things that are going to get in the way of you accomplishing your top 5 major goals. So that's what I got for today. I hope you guys got something great out of this. Before I go, I do want to invite you to a mastermind event I'm hosting in San Diego on October 15th at the Marriott. It's an invite-only mastermind event that is going to be capped at 18 of kind of the best, brightest, you know, top property management entrepreneurs in the industry. And if you're interested in learning more about that, we have a form to fill out. It's a 1-day event. We have a form to fill out. I'll link it at the bottom of these notes. And if you're interested in that, click that link and you can get some more information and submit your information, and we'll be in touch. We're really looking to create an event. Haven't seen any events like this where we really focus on the amazing benefits that masterminding has. I'm in a monthly mastermind with a great group of people. We've been doing it for few years now and it's over the video, but you can only get so much done over a video for an hour, every month or so. So we're going to go full day, set it up so that everybody gets a ton of value. We're going to go over wins and losses. There's going to be hot seat time so that you can go over your list with the group, and we're going to use the brain trust of the group to give you the ideas and the insight and the experience to really knock that list out. There's going to be a special guest speaker, and a lot of other cool stuff going on that's going to give you just a ton of ideas and build a really close-knit community of property management entrepreneurs that are going to be invested in making sure everyone else succeeds. So quick pitch for that before I let you go. Thank you all for listening so much. And again, if you enjoyed this, please share my podcast with a friend or give me a review. I would appreciate that very much. Out.